All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and start our workshop this morning. It's 10. We probably have a few more come in, but I'll begin with introducing myself. I'll begin with introducing the workshop. Welcome to today's SCORE workshop, QuickBooks Online Basics. I'm Nicole Raleigh. I'm a SCORE volunteer at the Piedmont chapter, and I'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A windows throughout this webinar this morning. So if you have questions, please ask and we'll do our best to get them answered for you. For those of you who are not familiar with SCORE, we're a nonprofit organization. We are a resource partner with the Small Business Association, and we are 100% volunteer based. SCORE basically has two main areas of focus. We do one-on-one mentoring, which is provided by experienced business owners and executives. And we also do educational workshops like this morning's event. And the bottom line message about SCORE is that we're here to help local small businesses in any way we can. If you'd like more information on that, or if you're interested in signing up for one-on-one mentoring, please check out our website at piedmont.score.org. And so I'd like to introduce our presenter this morning. His name is Jerry Stevens from Bookkeeping by Jerry. Jerry is a financial professional and a QuickBooks Online certified pro advisor. Jerry's professional bookkeeping services go beyond bookkeeping basics and include detailed financial reporting and analysis, identification of expense and tax reduction opportunities, and tax planning strategies that help small businesses feel confident and in control of their finances. So I'm looking forward to learning more about QuickBooks Online. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Jerry.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here. We'll just jump into it and get started with the presentation. So see if I can share the screen. Nicole, does it look good from your end? You've got the
that looks
presentation
good,
up?
yeah.
Okay, well, good. Today we're going to do kind of a basic overview of QuickBooks and some of the functionality within it, maybe help you understand what some of the capabilities are, how it might benefit your business and make tracking and reporting easier for you, and look at a variety of ways that it can fit into a number of different businesses. So hopefully at the end of today's session here, you'll have a pretty good idea of what QuickBooks can do for you and potentially whether it's a fit or not. We'll start by talking about the difference between QuickBooks, the desktop version and the online version. The desktop version of QuickBooks requires installation onto your laptop, desktop, whatever it's located on. You buy the desktop version by a one-time purchase, and then there are kind of periodic updates to that, at least annual updates to that are put out by QuickBooks. And kind of after a period of time, usually 3 years or so, they will sunset that version of QuickBooks and kind of force people onto a newer version. So for example, I think I saw the 2017 version of QuickBooks is going to be eliminated here this year. Again, pushing people onto newer versions of QuickBooks so they don't have to maintain so many versions of that themselves. Because the information resides on your computer, it's really incumbent upon you to back up that computer with that data. Whether that's hard drive, or if you have an online place, you can do that, but that responsibility is on the owner themselves. Desktop tends to be geared towards product and inventory based businesses that don't have a lot of devices, and by devices I mean people wanting to access QuickBooks through cell phone, iPad, etc. because it does reside just on the one device. And there are more versions of desktop currently working than there are online versions of QuickBooks. But that's because desktop has been around far longer. And but of the new sales, a lot more are going on the online side, and we'll touch on that here in a minute. So the online version of QuickBooks does not require an installation. You can do that through a web browser. You pay for that through a monthly subscription, and we'll talk about what that price is here in a minute. The backup is to the Intuit servers, so there's built-in backup of the data that resides within QuickBooks Online. It tends to be geared towards service-based businesses and businesses that have multiple devices, again, that want to access that through cell phone, laptop, iPad, etc. And as I was mentioning a moment ago, of the new users to QuickBooks in general, about 80% now are using the online version versus the desktop version. In terms of QuickBooks costs, again, the online version is a subscription basis, and there's a self-employed version, Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus. And so self-employed is $15 a month, Simple Start's $25, Essentials are $40, and Plus is $70 a month. And on the desktop side, they have a Pro version, which is $299 purchase price. Premier is $499, which is the Pro version, but it also gives you some forecasting and profitability calculations and reporting by customer or project. And then the Enterprise version is $1,091. That gets into a lot of other functionality like barcode scanning for inventory, things that a lot of smaller businesses would not have a need for, but it does fit the need for other companies out there. And those are all retail prices, by the way. You can find sales or special promotions. At the moment, I think QuickBooks is offering kind of half off the online pricing for the first 3 months, something like that. So, you can get it at a discounted price, at least for, certain period of time, introduction to it. In terms of the benefits of QuickBooks Online, as I've touched on, it provides access from multiple options. So, if you're working out in the field, away from the office, etc., you can get to it by, cell phone, tablet, etc. The mobile access is at no additional cost. Because the data resides really on Intuit servers, there's no need for kind of transferring data between users. You all have access to the same data. Again, it's hosted and backed up on Intuit servers. It allows you to create emails and invoices to clients. So built into that, when you set up a client record, you input their email, and you can, again, send invoices, follow-ups, etc., through email, through QuickBooks Online. On the inventory side, it uses the FIFO method, first in, first out. It also will track logins and third-party activity through an activity log or through an audit log, so that, if there are changes made, you can look back to see, who made the changes. It also organizes the data by both class, and kind of definition of a class would be either a department, a cost center, a line of business, or location, if you have multiple locations, multiple offices. And it provides for automatic downloads of bank transactions nightly. In terms of we touched on before, there are different versions of the online. And the simple start version, and I didn't list the self-employed version here. It's a limited version of QuickBooks, kind of a skinny down version of it. It does work pretty well for a sole proprietor. It will track income and expenses. It has the bank feeds. You can track mileage and send invoices. Those are kind of the key functionality around the self-employed side of it. On the simple start side, you can see here, we touched on some of these things: data backup. It has bank level security and encryption. It gives you one full user access. You can invite an accountant or bookkeeper if you want those people to do the QuickBooks for you. There's an unlimited number of invoices and estimates that you can send. It calculates sales tax, for customers. You can also take pictures of receipts and upload those, to QuickBooks as your kind of verification, documentation of expenses, and provides, some of the other capabilities here on the side for check printing and recording transactions, download bank and credit card transactions. It'll also, track kind of 1099. So if if you've got people that you pay, and at the end of the year, you need to send out 1099 statements, it will do that for you. It will track that throughout the year, and then you can report on how much you paid them throughout the year. And then there are 20 different kind of built-in financial reports. So that's really where Simple Start is. Kind of the limitation here on the next over the next level up would be you're not able to pay vendor bills with the Simple Start, and or send estimates, and you've just kind of got the one full access user. So if you kind of move on to the Essentials version, it includes everything that we just talked about, but here you have 3 users. You can manage and pay bills, as I was talking about the vendor bills, and you can schedule, payments for the future. You can create the invoices and estimates. You can also do unlimited time tracking. If you're in a business that tracks time and bills that way, it has that capability. It has some reporting on profitability that you can compare within the industry, that may be of value. It'll do multi-currency, and it has 40 built-in financial reports. And then on the online plus version, of course, it's everything that we've talked about, but here you're up to 5 users with permission controls, and up to 25 users in total. Unlimited number of report-only users. You can track billable hours by customer, do purchase orders, class and location tracking, budgets, estimates, and up to 65 built-in reports. And so those are kind of some of the different versions, and why you might want one version over another version. In terms of when you are going to set up a QuickBooks account for your business, you're going to use it, set it up under your company name or a DBA if that's the way you operate. QuickBooks will also allow you to upload a logo. So if you have a company logo, you can upload that and attach that to invoices and estimates, emails, etc., which helps in your branding. It's also obviously going to capture your employee number or Social Security number, if that's the way you do employee identification number or Social Security number, depending on which of those your business operates under. You'll designate what your tax form is, whether it's sole proprietor, LLC, etc. You'll have your contact information uploaded in there. And then the address of the business, and that's important because it has the capability of calculating taxes that are owed. including local taxes. And so that's why it's driving from that address, which is, important to get correctly input. On the sales side of QuickBooks, you're able to customize forms. It has standardized forms that you can start with, but you can customize those, and those would be invoices and estimates and sales receipts. You can rename forms if that fits better into your business. You can use your own company color schemes and logos, to help in consistent branding. And you can establish your own sales form content, whether that's invoice terms, shipping methods. If you want to offer discounts to groups of customers, all customers, specific customers, etc., it can be customized to do that as well. In terms of products and services, you can track the quantity and price and rate, and those would flow through onto your forms like invoices and estimates. It allows you to track inventory on hand. So if you have a business, and again, you have some level of inventory and you want to be able to do that automatically, it has the ability to do that. It also will show the SKU, although we find most small businesses don't use SKUs. And then from that inventory, you can also set reorder points. So if it's important to you that that when you get below a certain level, kind of as a reminder to reorder that item, it will set that as well. In terms of some of the other capabilities, it will, allows you to set default email messages of, thanks for your business or whatever you want to say on your invoices. You can customize those as well. You can set some email reminders, which will, if an invoice hasn't been paid, it will send back out an email on your schedule to remind the client to pay the bill. And then it provides aging reports so that you can see, either by client or in total, from a accounts receivable standpoint, how those amounts are aging. Some of the company advanced account settings, if your fiscal year is different than the calendar year, it'll allow you to establish that. It will allow you to pick your accounting method as well, although, I typically encourage my clients to strongly to go with the accrual method. But, obviously, if you want to go with cash method, you can do that as well. Again, the company type, whether it be sole proprietor or LLC, you'll designate that. The QuickBooks, based on the industry that you select, will also provide a chart of accounts as a starting point. So, it'll give you the various accounts that QuickBooks finds you will likely need for your industry, and then, establish that chart of accounts number. Oftentimes, when you work with QuickBooks, over a period of time, you learn kind of a chart of accounts, what the number is for a given account. And sometimes it's easier to put in, 4-digit number than, to start to type out what the account is that you're working with. And so we'll provide that capability. As we've touched on, it will, again, do the categories for you, the classes and locations of business. It has automation function, which will start to pre-fill different fields for you. If you start to type something, it will kind of recognize what you've used in those fields before and bring that up. So it makes the entry easier and simpler from that standpoint. Again, we've touched on this. It'll do some, project tracking, time tracking for your business. And it also will, if you've got some date or number format that you prefer, it will accommodate that. And then you can also set it to sign out after a certain period of time, like an hour, for example, if you've been inactive, for security measures, it will sign you out. On the sales center side of it, which is kind of the center of all things sales within QuickBooks that you can take a look at, you can set up your customer payment options. And so if you want to be, paid by cash, check, credit, debit cards, online payments, mobile payments, Apple Pay, etc., it can accommodate, any or all of those. You could establish the way you want to be paid and set that kind of as the limited selection for the client on how they're going to pay you. Chart of accounts, we touched on this a minute ago. The chart of accounts is kind of the backbone of your, accounting and bookkeeping. As I mentioned, it will set up the basic chart of accounts for you based on your industry. But if you've got a current chart of accounts, that you want to use, you can also import your own chart of accounts into QuickBooks so that it will align with what you're using currently and you are familiar with. As we saw from some of the different versions of QuickBooks, some of those allow multiple users, and you can set permissions and access for those users. There's kind of two main categories of users within QuickBooks. There's a company administrator or a standard user. The company administrator kind of has access to see and do anything within QuickBooks, whereas the standard user would have kind of full or limited access, and that's really either access on the customer and sales side or the vendor and purchases side. So you kind of designate, which of those they would have the access to. And, just as a reminder, as you're setting these controls and access ability for the standard users, it's always the business owner's responsibility for proper internal controls. So, you need to be the one that establishes who you're giving access to, what access they have, to make certain that you still maintain proper internal controls within your business. If you choose to have, an accounting firm or a bookkeeper, virtual bookkeeper, for example, do your bookkeeping for you, there's the ability within QuickBooks to kind of invite an accountant to have access to your books. That's how you would kind of give them permission to come in and do the bookkeeping for you. Under manage users, like you would some of the other users within your firm. There's an accounting firm tab that you would use to enter the accountant's email address. So you may have met with an accounting firm, you decided, or a bookkeeper, and you decided that's who you would like to go with. They provide you with their email address. You would kind of go in, input that email address, click the invitation, and then they would have access into your QuickBooks data to do the bookkeeping for you. As the owner, you would still have that same access yourself. And as we talked about before, with that audit log, you'll also be able to see what everybody within your QuickBooks is doing or has done, and that would include any accountant or bookkeeping firm that you invite in. On the bank feed side of things, you can automate bank transactions to feed into QuickBooks. If you're starting today, that will go forward. So each night, the banking transactions, that includes both from the bank or credit card transactions as well, would be downloaded nightly. So if you want kind of historical transactions to get into QuickBooks, that can also be done through QuickBooks. Although some banks only allow 90 days, or in some cases 6 months of historic downloads. You can go in and automate that, and QuickBooks will pull in that 6 months, for example, of historical transactions for you. If you need to go back further than that, let's say, we're here in August and your bank will only allow you to go back 90 days, but you'd like to go back to the first of the year, you can go back further. It might require going into the bank and creating what's called a CSV file, similar to an Excel spreadsheet file. And that's done in kind of a QBO format, which QuickBooks provides for you. And you can download all those transactions from the bank and then upload those to QuickBooks. So you have full capability to get historic data into QuickBooks, aside from setting up the bank feeds that would be kind of going forward basis. In terms of creating customers, there are kind of two ways you can do that. You can import customers through a CSV file format, which we just talked about. So if you've got your own customer list currently, you can upload that to QuickBooks in that format. If not, if you're kind of a new business just starting, you might just input those customers individually as they created, inputting their customer name, all the contact information, etc. As you go along. But again, either way works. If you've got a big customer file you'd like to input, you certainly can do that through the CSV file format. As we've talked about previously, the email address for your customers is important because that'll allow you to email them invoices and follow-ups, etc. You can also input personal notes about the customer. So if you got them on the phone and want to pull up the customer file while you're talking to them, and remember specific information, personal information about them, QuickBooks can maintain that information for you. And then if there's if they happen to be a governmental entity or nonprofit or reseller and are exempt from tax, QuickBooks will also allows you to mark them as tax exempt, so that when QuickBooks is calculating tax, they won't do that for those customers. On the vendor side of it, it's similar. You can create a file for each vendor as you go along if you care to do that. If you prefer to use account numbers for different vendors, you can do that too. You're obviously going to want to enter their business ID, tax ID as part of that. And again, we've talked about the 1099 before. It's generally a best practice, at least when I talk to my clients, to if they're unsure, to go ahead and check the track payments for 1099 box in the customer file. That way, at the end of the year, you can take a look at total payments you've made to a vendor and decide at that point if you need to send them a 1099. That way, you've already got all that information captured. And if you need to send it, it's all automated and easy enough to print and get those sent out to them at the first of the year. QuickBooks they treat expenses and bills differently. And so an expense in the QuickBooks world is an expense. It's something that's already been paid. That could be paid, something you've already paid for with cash, maybe you paid for it with a check, or probably most often a credit card. And so, so this is something that won't have an impact to accounts payable. So it's not something you need to pay in the future, you've already paid it. That's what QuickBooks refers to as expenses. And so again, these generally come from credit cards. They're going to be usually uploaded through a bank feed, through a feed from the credit card company. And so that's what you'll see for expenses on the QuickBooks side. What they refer to as bills would be something that's going to be paid at a later date. So you've got an invoice from a client or from a vendor, for example, that you need to pay, in terms of 15 days. So you want to pay it, on the 15th day to maximize your cash flow. So you would input that, you can schedule it for payment at a later date, and it will, put that into your accounts payable until that date, and then, it will go ahead and issue the check at that point in time. So you've got those two different things, and QuickBooks will, on the dashboard, will show the difference between those two and show you what's, upcoming from your accounts payable standpoint. For businesses that might buy something today that they need to add to a customer bill in the future, those are referred to as billable expenses within the QuickBooks world. So let's say you're a landscaper and you needed to go buy something at Lowe's for a project you're working on for a client. You're paying for it with a credit card, but you want to be reminded that when you when you bill the customer at the end of the project, you don't want to forget that you've bought this item and add it to your bill. And so QuickBooks information, it'll pre-populate it for you. And then when your input, or when you're creating the invoice later for that, it will remind you that, hey, you've got this billable expense out here that you paid for it. Do you want to include it with this bill? And if so, it will add, you can click add, it'll add to the invoice for the customer, and you can invoice for the total amount. On the sales tax setup, as I mentioned, QuickBooks will set up and calculate the taxes that are owed, both adding the tax, to any invoices that you send out, but then also accumulating that and telling you what you owe to the various taxing authorities. And so you will set up the taxing agency, how often you have to, file taxes, and QuickBooks, will help with that, but it will do all that calculation kind of behind the scenes and automatically calculate those taxes. And as tax rates and things change, we'll also track that and kind of update that for you. But you also have the ability to add or edit those as well. You open up a new office, etc. You may have a new location, so you need to add that as well, but it will do that all behind the scenes for you. For inventory-based businesses, it will, again, we'll track the inventory for you. I always tell my clients to never create kind of an additional or an initial quantity on hand for inventory, and there's some reasons for that impacts owner equity and other things like that. So there's some ways to that you should handle the inventory side of this, but QuickBooks has all the capability to track all your inventory for you. As I touched on before, it has reorder points that will remind you when it's time to reorder the various inventory items. You can also set up the inventory asset accounts that apply to your business, the associated income accounts, etc. And so it's good for the inventory side. As we mentioned up front, some really inventory heavy businesses might lean a bit more towards the desktop version because it has some additional functionality behind it. But the QuickBooks Online version does have basic inventory capabilities. You also will want to do some kind of inventory count at some point, whether that be monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual. And so you're going to need to adjust inventory, based on if your actual inventory doesn't match what's on the QuickBooks side of it. It will allow for what they call an inventory adjustment account, which could hit cost of goods sold, or you could set up another account which tracks lost inventory if that's the way you prefer to handle it. But basically, you're going to input what your actual inventory count is for an item. It will compare it to what's in its books, and then calculate the change in inventory and book that to the appropriate account for you. And then on the non-inventory side, if you've got some small items that are hard to track, you're just not going to maintain inventory around that. You can put that on, call those non-inventory items, and that's where it tends to put the services that you offer to customers too, would be on the non-inventory side. In terms of sales, again, if you want to give a customer a sales receipt, QuickBooks has the ability to produce receipts for you, a sales receipt for you, and you can add, customer name, all the typical things you would do probably currently in a sales receipt, the date, the payment method, any reference numbers, whether it be a client check, the product or service that was sold, the description, quantity, you can indicate whether it's taxable. And then there's a memo field that if there's some information you want to capture for yourself that wouldn't be seen by the client, you can do that as well. For invoices, you can, again, as we talked about, you can set up customer name and email address, terms, what was bought, quantity, rate. You can send that through email. You can give it to them personally. You can also attach documents if there are things that would be important to provide with the invoice. You can include those documents as well. You can either print those or just preview it to make sure it's okay and save it for later. You can also set up recurring service invoices. So again, if you're a landscaping firm and you charge $200 a month to maintain somebody's lawn, you can set it up to bill that client $200 every month, so you don't have to create that invoice 12 months a year. You can do that for you. Estimates, we talked a little bit about estimates. Estimates do not impact revenue, so this is just you providing that initial revenue or estimate to the client or potential customer. It tracks all that information, what the products and services you would be offering to them, the quantity, the rate, etc. And it holds all that information that then you could use to create an invoice. If they in fact want to move forward with the project, then it flows through to an invoice and creates that for you. Just next to the estimate field, there's something called Start Invoice, and it'll automatically populate all that for you. In terms of bank deposits, we've talked a little bit about that flowing in each night. QuickBooks will look to match items that come through the bank deposit through items that are already in QuickBooks. And so if those things, match up, it will basically say, this expense from the bank looks like it matches, this invoice that you've sent out, and it will match those for you and give you the option to look at that and say, yes, that's a correct match, and check that off, rather than you having to match those things up manually yourself. So it is a time-saving function. It looks at kind of date, the amount, customer name, etc., to try to match those kinds of things. If you've got payments, you're accepting a payment like a check from a client that you're not going to deposit immediately to the bank. In QuickBooks, they put that into an undeposited funds account. That's kind of a holding account until you make a bank deposit. And then when you go to make a deposit with the bank, you're going to go in, look at the checks that are sitting in undeposited funds. You're going to click off the ones that you're taking for deposit to the bank. And then QuickBooks will match those up when that deposit comes through from the bank and clear all those checks from your customers. So it does a really nice job of matching up things from the bank feed to things that are already in QuickBooks that will help you at month end as you're going through a reconciliation process. This is kind of some additional detail, what I was just talking about, the recognized bank transactions that QuickBooks will do for you on a daily basis. And you can look at those daily yourself, look at them once a week, whatever your preferred workflow is. You can, as I said, it'll look for the ones that match up, and you can go down through, and all the ones that you feel are a correct match, you can click all those and do batch matching action within QuickBooks. You can also set up bank rules within QuickBooks. So, if you get a utility bill from, Duke each month, you can tell QuickBooks to code that as a utility expense. So when that comes through from Duke, maybe an ACH transaction that comes through a bank account, QuickBooks will see it from Duke and automatically code that as utility, and it will be matched throughout your book or throughout QuickBooks. You really won't have to do any coding for that at all. When you're doing, each month you're going to want to do a reconciliation process, bank reconciliation process for bank and credit cards to make certain that all transactions, all economic transactions have been included and none have been duplicated. And QuickBooks will help automate that process. It has a bank reconciliation feature, and you'll see, you'll enter kind of the starting account balance per the bank statement, for example. QuickBooks will have its bank balance, and then, you'll go down through and match up the items that are both in QuickBooks and on your bank statement. And it will, match those off. And once you've done all those, hopefully you're reconciled to a zero difference, which means you now know that all transactions have been accounted for. And also, it'll show you the items that haven't been matched off, which would be, old transactions that you would want to investigate a bit further. Financial reports, we've talked about kind of the different reports. I mean, Simple Start has 20 reports, Essential has 40, the Plus has about 65 plus financial reports. And there are kind of three key questions every business owner was going to want to know through their financial statements. What is the equity? What's the capital in my business? You're going to do that by looking at the balance sheet. What is my profit? So you're going to look at the income statement. Some people refer to it as profit loss statement. And where did the cash come from and where did it go? And that will be evident through the statement of cash flows. And those reports are going to be available on all of those. The balance sheet, it's going to be as of a specific date. It's kind of a snapshot of your business, if you will. The income statement, kind of a specific period of time, for example, year to date. So it's kind of a movie. So it's, for the first, 7 months of the year, what has happened to my business. And then the statement of cash flows. Going to be for a specific period of time. Again, it could be year to date. And those reports are all automated. And so when you click on those, for example, a balance sheet, it will bring up a balance sheet with all your numbers populated into it. And we'll take a look at an example of over on QuickBooks at a sample company here in a minute. Just so you can see some of the things that we've been talking about. Other financial reports, some of the key reports you might see: invoices, issued, payments received, open invoices, an accounts receivable aging report, an accounts payable aging summary, and a sales tax liability report. Now, payroll. QuickBooks will interface with various payroll systems. Payroll, or QuickBooks has their own payroll, but it also will, you can get a feed from Gusto and Patriot, for example, into QuickBooks. But there are other payroll services that do not feed into QuickBooks, and that just means, each payroll period you're going to have to manually enter from the payroll reports to get that information into QuickBooks. As I mentioned, QuickBooks has its own payroll service, and they have 3 tiers, and I believe this, actually that's not correct. The range, I think it might be from 22 to maybe $52 per month. We'd have to, I'll have to confirm those numbers, but QuickBooks does have that payroll service. You could also find that on their site too. Daily sales so if you're in a business that doesn't invoice customers for products and services, so if you're a coffee shop, for example, you would typically have a point of sale system. So again, these would be retailers, restaurants, coffee shops, maybe veterinarians, chiropractors, spas, online retailers, etc. You can establish a process for recording your daily sales. So each day you're going to have, an income amount. You may have tips. You're certainly going to have tax payable. You may have gift cards that you're accounting for, debit, credit cards, cash, you're accepting cash, etc. So you can set up a template like process within QuickBooks where you're inputting a total number into kind of each of those fields we just talked about, which tends to make it, much easier to record all those daily. And this is probably a little bit hard to see, but it, this will show kind of a daily sales bundle for a line item for each of the various line items: sales income, sales tax, tips payable, gift cards, cash, checks, MasterCard, Visa, over, short, etc. You kind of fill in the total amounts each day for the sales receipt. QuickBooks Online also has a lot of apps, and they've allowed third parties to develop apps that work with QuickBooks. And Intuit will test and approve those apps before they make them available. Some are free, some have a charge associated with it. Some of the more popular ones: T-Sheets does time tracking. Work, etc. is a CRM system. It also manages projects, quotes, billing platforms. So if you're heavy into that kind of business, Receipt Bank will sync the data from receipts and bills within QuickBooks. So if you have a lot of receipts, Receipt Bank might be something that you would look at. Expensify does the similar receipts tracking and expense management. Method is a CRM system. E-commerce is pretty helpful if you're managing sales through an Amazon account, Etsy, eBay, Shopify. So if you've got that kind of business, there are some apps that help capture that data and feed it into QuickBooks. And well, I'm going to jump over to QuickBooks here for a minute just to show you an example company in case you haven't seen QuickBooks before, just so you have some idea what it looks like. Here's my contact information. If you have questions afterwards, that you would like to ask me about, or have issues with QuickBooks that you might want to bounce something off of, I'd be glad to, try to help you out. or get you pointed in the right direction. So let me see if I can get out of here now. Okay. And okay. This is within QuickBooks Online, they offer a sample company. This is kind of a test company that it doesn't impact your QuickBooks whatsoever. You can go in here and play around with it and test out various functionality, and it doesn't hurt anything. Whatever changes you make when you exit out of this and go back to your own QuickBooks account, it doesn't get saved. So it's a good place to come and try something out if you're not sure how things work. And it gives you some idea of, some of the capabilities and, some things that you might want to try out on a sample account before doing it on your own account if you're not sure. But this is the dashboard page. This would be kind of your home page, if you will, for your own account. You can see this is Craig's Design and Landscaping Services. If you were, let's say you worked at you had a cube in kind of a shared space with other businesses, and you might, if you have this up on your laptop or something, there's a privacy button that you can hit here, which will hide your financial numbers. You might not want anybody walking over your shoulder and seeing it. So it will, hide all that information from somebody that might be around if you're not working in your own private office. But at a high level here, you can see, for expense or for invoices example, there's, $5,200 unpaid over the last 365 days. 3,600 are paid in the last 30 days. See a breakdown of not deposited, deposited. You can show a high level view of your expenses. You can change that from 30 days to this month, this quarter, this year. We go to this year. And again, this is because it's a sample company, sometimes, this doesn't work as cleanly as your own account will. But it allows you to change those fields for yourself. So you get your own view of your business to see how it's doing over a period of time. So you've got invoices here, you've got expenses there. You've got over here, you've got the bank account. So you would see on your own business, you would see checking accounts, you would see any savings, you would see, MasterCard, Visa, Amex, etc. Profit and loss statement. Again, you could change that for various periods of time. It's going to show you your net income, the breakdown between income and expense. Here you'll see sales kind of as a chart about what's been going on in your business. So the dashboard will give you at a pretty quick view, what's going on in your particular company. On the banking tab, looks like QuickBooks might be having some issues at the problem. I don't know if that's in general or just with this sample company. Let's see if this gets refreshed. Well, it looks like, you know, I've also been having had a message pop up here that I was having some internet connection interruptions as well. So it could be on my end too. But you'll see that you'll have a banking tab, which will show, again, which will show all the different banking accounts that you have linked, the rules that we talked about, which won't show the rules at the moment, but this is where you would see the list of rules that you've created. For example, if we get a payment from, or if you get if you see something come through from Duke on a monthly basis, you know, that you want it identified as a utility bill, you know, all the other bank rules that you've set up, receipts, you know, you would see any of the particular receipts that have been captured, the dates, the descriptions, etc. Expenses, again, you'll see a breakdown between kind of total expenses that have been paid recently, and then the, you know, breakdown of the individual vendors too. So you could, yes. I'm sorry, did you have a question, Nicole? Okay. Oh, I was going to connect, unfortunately. Again, this is the sales dashboard. And so it again will give you the overview. It'll show you all sales. It has a tab for invoices, customers. So you'll see all customers, and then you could click on an individual customer and get a breakdown from there. If you want to see the difference between, you know, if you're different products and services, you could click on a product and service and get a breakdown for, see which customers have bought, you know, that product or service from you there as well. Projects, we touched on. If you're a project-based business, this is where it would have all project reporting for you. Payroll, you would have a tab for payroll, and so you would see kind of the employees side of it. You would see any contractors that you're paying. You would see workers' compensation. Reports would be where we would get to some of the financial reports that we were talking about. So you've got some standard reports. If you've got customized reports, you could create those. Those would be here. Management reports would also be available to you. And so there would be a long list of reports, and you click on those, it pulls in all of the financial information and creates the report for you. And you also have the ability to customize those reports, whether you want to give it another name, you know, change anything like that. How you would like it displayed, you can change as well. The tax center would be where you'd see all your tax reporting. So the various tax agencies, the amount currently due, the amount upcoming would be displayed here as well. Obviously nothing's loading at the moment, but it would capture all things tax related on that tab for you. There's also mileage capability. If you track mileage for, if you're, you know, if that's something you bill for and need to track mileage, it would do that as well. And then the accounting side of it would be kind of where your chart of accounts resides. And then when you're doing reconciliations, so bank reconciliations, credit card reconciliations, et cetera, each month. And so that's kind of the layout of how this thing flows. Looks like it comes and goes. You'd see some of the information that would you know, populate here. But it's very user friendly. It's click and pull in information, and it makes kind of getting a financial picture what's going on in your business, fairly easy. So let me stop at that point and see if Nicole has any questions, or there's anything else we might be able to cover at this point.
Hey, no questions from me. We could open up to everyone in the group. There were Lori Collins had asked a question about looking for a tutorial. Lori, if you feel like the example with Craig's Design and Landscape Service answered you, then great. And if not, you can request an additional explanation in the question and answer or the chat. However you all feel like posing your questions, we can answer them for you. Nobody's got anything?
And again, the Craig's Landscape and Design obviously is available only if you have QuickBooks, because it resides within QuickBooks Online. But if you've got QuickBooks, again, that's a good place to to go poke around and see how some of those things work. You can create invoices. You can do a number of things in there. Now, it does have some limitations. Obviously, it won't allow you to go very far down the path on the tax side of it, because it doesn't want anything actually going out to a taxing authority or to a bank, anything like that. So there's no live feeds out to those organizations. So some of the functionality doesn't work there, but the general layout and reports and what you can see generally is available there.
Well, if oh, I think we may have one more. Here we go. Gay wants to know, can you show us how to connect our bank accounts securely?
Yeah, it's there's functionality within QuickBooks. I mean, QuickBooks itself does that connection they established is a secure connection and encrypted and all that kind of thing. It's a process. Let me go back again. I was having problems with QuickBooks. I'm not sure if this will work. But so it's on the banking side. Yeah, it's not getting to it now, but there's once you get out to this page, it will, it actually will prompt you when you first start to set up QuickBooks, that it will prompt you to go ahead and connect to banking sites, and it will walk you through that process. Basically, what you're going to need is your username and password for your banking institution. QuickBooks will then make that connection out to the bank, use that password, your username and password, to authenticate it with the bank, and then create that secure encrypted connection between the QuickBooks and the bank. And then we'll set up the automatic download each night. So it's not a difficult process to go through. The encryption and security and all that kind of stuff, QuickBooks does for you. It's just a matter of essentially getting signed into your banking account, and you just need that username and password and provide that to QuickBooks, and it really does the rest of it.
You did such a good job, Jerry. Hey.
Not sure if I flooded it with too much information or not enough.
Oh, here we have the question from Miranda is, are there any type of certification programs available that you could suggest?
You can, or actually, I guess Nicole mentioned at the top of the presentation that I have the QuickBooks Pro certification, Pro Advisor certification. You certainly can do that. It's a certification that's run by QuickBooks itself that you can go out to their website, and it basically kind of walks you through step by step all the capabilities of QuickBooks. It provides a test after each module, and then an overall test to get the certification. And so that's probably the first one I would think about because it's offered by QuickBooks itself.
And then Lori had one more question. She says she's an interior designer, and if she had some questions, could she ask you via email? Maybe
Yeah.
if you go ahead, Jerry.
Sure. Let me see if I can get that back up there.
Yeah.
Oops. So so does everybody see? Can you see the my contact information now?
I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So bookkeeping by Jerry @gmail.com would be how you can get a hold of me. It's the same thing. bookkeepingbyjerry.com is the website. And then the numbers 864-300-2801. So any of those methods work. And again, if you have a quick question, that's fine. I don't, that's freebie. I'd be glad to help anybody that's got, pretty easy questions. If you want more detailed, like an hour training session or something with QuickBooks, I can do that kind of thing too. So yeah, you can contact me by email. If you've got additional questions, give me a call or email, and I'll get back to you and try to help you out.
Liliana had asked if there was advanced courses or hands-on practice. I think you sort of just addressed that.
Yeah, and there are advanced certifications too, beyond the Certified Pro Advisor. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of starting that process right now for the advanced certification. So yeah, there are advanced courses as well. And if anybody's interested in specific bookkeeping training, shoot me an email too, and I can tell you about the course, training course that's specific to bookkeeping that may be of interest to you. But on the QuickBooks side, yeah, I would do the training through QuickBooks.
Got a lot of thank yous from everybody.
You're welcome.
Well, if if there are no more questions, we would like to ask participants to answer a couple questions. We have about a poll on our seminar, which going to launch right now. And I'm hoping that is visible, unless I need to share this screen. Can participants verify in a chat window maybe whether or not you all are seeing this poll on your screens?
Nicole, I saw it pop up on mine, but
okay, good. Okay, thank you, Gay. I see that. Thank you. All right. We still are able to take questions if any of you guys are coming up with anything. Here, I got one from Silica Jerry. Do all of the add-on functions discussed apply to any iteration of the product, online or desktop, or does that vary?
Let me see if I can pull up the question, add-on
Sure.
functions. I'm not sure if the question was specific to the apps that are available or not. I would say most, well, it depends on what we're talking about. It does differ by which version of the product you have, but most things are, but anything you can do on online, you can do on desktop. So from a high level, those are similar. That home page, that dashboard screen looks different between desktop and online, looks significantly different, but the functionality is largely the same within there. Some of the other things that I talked about, may differ by version. Because, for example, the self-employed version, for example, is a skinny down version and doesn't give you some of the functionality that the more robust versions do. So it does depend. The base functionality is pretty similar between all of them, but there are some differences as you kind of go up the chain. You do pick up some additional functionality and applications. If there was one in particular that you were interested in, I could try to give you a more definitive answer, or shoot me an email and I'd be glad to respond to that too.
Silica said, thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome. Sorry, we didn't have a little better luck with the QuickBooks side of it, but at least you get to kind of see what the different tabs are. Just some of the data just wouldn't load for some reason.
Oh, I've got a question from Miranda. She's looking into becoming a bookkeeper. She's asking, is there any other softwares to be aware of, and what version of QuickBooks should someone becoming a bookkeeper really be looking at?
There's actually, well, I think there's two questions there. Besides QuickBooks, there are some competitors. Now, QuickBooks is kind of the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, they're the big player in this space, but there's Xero, FreshBooks, Sage, and Zoho are, some of the other names that would also be in this space that would compete with QuickBooks. And then in terms of if she's looking to become a bookkeeper, was there a question about training? Is that what the second part was?
If there was a specific version of QuickBooks.
Right. And so there's an accountant version of QuickBooks. So if you're if you are a bookkeeper and you're working with other clients, you would want the accountant version of QuickBooks, which is what I have, because what that allows you to do is I can have multiple clients, access to multiple clients' books on my one system. So the accountant version of QuickBooks is what you would want. And actually that version is free. Now, that's if you're acting as an accountant or bookkeeper. That version would be free to you. I guess QuickBooks thinking is, if you're servicing their clients in some way, they're not going to charge you for the software.
Okay, we got a question from Gay. Oh, sorry, maybe a comment. Workshop information was good for someone to help them decide upon which version would be best for their business. I was looking for some basic instruction on the setup of the product. I have a desktop version, wanted to make sure I was using it in the most effective manner for my business. And he said he was looking at possibly taking some QuickBooks training, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, I talked a good bit about the online version today, because that's where 80% of the people are, it's what 80% of the businesses are selecting now. But again, most of the things I talked about today do apply, on the desktop side as well. How you get there, what it looks like might be a bit different. But yeah, I would say if you want to talk to somebody about whether, desktop is the best version for your business, given what the type of business is, whether you're, in the field, you have need for multiple users, all those kinds of things, I could talk to you about it. Or you certainly can find, QuickBooks training at a variety of sources. I mean, I'd be glad to do it. QuickBooks would probably offer some of that, other firms as well. So again, shoot me an email and I'd be glad to point you in the right direction. And I think, Nicole, I think the idea was that we were going to have a kind of a deeper dive into QuickBooks class sometime potentially this fall. I don't think that's been scheduled yet. So, I mean, if, people are interested in, and that would be where we spend the whole time in Craig's landscape and design. So we go in and, create invoices, match up bank transactions, do all those kinds of things, where it'd be kind of, more visual, seeing how that works all within QuickBooks. I think the plan was to do that somewhere down the line. Today, hopefully, it was kind of at a high level introduction to QuickBooks. Which version might I want? What functionality does it have? Is it a fit for my business, etc. Then getting to the how do I specifically use it would kind of be the next class.
Sure. Well, for any of our participants who, I'm assuming that you all probably got wind of this workshop through a mailer, but if you want to share it with others, again, you can go to our Piedmont Score website, which is piedmont.score.org, and make sure that you're signed up for emails. That way, if we've got this kind of more in-depth seminar planned out in the future, you can be sure to be alerted of it and catch up with us on that time. There's another question come in. Is it necessary to be an advisor before being a QuickBooks bookkeeper?
I don't think it is. I happen to do those things at about the same time, but I don't think it is. Yeah, my timing was a little bit different because I did I went through a training program around the bookkeeping side of it. As part of that, I needed to get certified through QuickBooks, and so by the time I actually downloaded the QuickBooks accountant version, I already was a certified pro advisor. But I don't think that is required.
Just a quick comment from Gay. He said, yes, he's definitely looking for the deeper dive into a sample business with inventory and invoices. And he's mentioning as a visual learner, that would be real helpful to him. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, go ahead, Jerry.
Right. Yeah, I think probably the next class, if you want to wait till then, might get at that. Or like I say, you can get training in the meantime that would be kind of specific and customized to your particular business and needs.
Well, just a few more minutes to see if anybody comes up with some more questions. Well, any last comments, Jerry? I think we've got everything coming that's coming.
Nope. I just thank everybody for tuning in today. Hopefully it gives you a little bit better idea of QuickBooks, and good luck with your business. If I can help you in some way, let me know. And at some point, like we said, there'll be some additional training, I think, around this, and so through SCORE, and so you can keep an eye out for that.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and we hope to see you soon on another SCORE webinar.